Let's take components even a little bit further and consider how we can swap, mix and match our components, and also combine them with other tools. And in this instance, we'll throw in a bit of a repeat grid. I have an Illustrator file that I've prepared with a series of icons, some artwork with a series of that includes a series of icons, and I'm going to import that into my project. I think it's on the desktop. Travel icon set. And I'm going to import that AI file. And as you can see, XD is pretty happy to import an AI file. And what I've got here is a collection of vector objects that I can use within XD. I'm going to turn all of these into components so that I can reuse them across my project and include them in this system, this design system that I'm building. So let's quickly go through these and add them as components. I'm just right-clicking on all of them and kind of feeding them into my component list. And you can see as I change them from just grouped vectors to components, they change from a blue bounding box to a green bounding box. And each of these will be main components. I think it's probably a good idea to rename all of these components. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So all my components are now named, and that just helps me kind of organize my work and make sure I know where everything is. And all of these symbols are now in my component list, so I can grab them, retrieve them at any time, and nest them into more complicated components if I need to. I'm going to build a little bit of a menu system now, or graphic, so that we can look at how we can swap out these components for each other. I'm going to need another artboard, and I'll grab the artboard tool. I think I'll just work again with the small iPhone, and we're going to make a bit of a menu list. So I'm going to drag out an icon to use, which is a component. You can see it's now an instance, and fits reasonably well against a column or within a column. I'm going to combine that with some text. And just while I set it to grey, make it a bit bigger. Maybe we'll pop it there for the time being, and a little bit of a line to break up these elements from the next menu item, which we'll add in a second. So a border of 2 pixels, maybe we'll make it a lighter grey. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's grab all of those objects, text, graphics, and that component, and make that into another component. Alright, so we'll call that menu label. Just double clicking on the component name, I can rename it. So that's good. And if I drag out another version of that, you can see how easy it is to reuse this stuff. I might just keep my main component off there in case I need to do some editing. And I'm going to combine that nested component process with a repeat grid and look at how versatile that combination of processes is. So let's include repeat grid on that component, and I can very easily just generate a menu as quick as that, or a list, and edit it. Maybe I'll edit the spacing a little bit, something like that. And you can kind of see, just in terms of editing and adjusting things, how using components allows us quite a bit of kind of flexibility. So if I go in there and want to adjust the positioning of something within the component, it'll update across the those instances. And of course, combining the repeat grid, we've got quite a bit of control over the editing of these elements. So great, we've got a repeat grid there, and inside that is a nested component, and I can kind of go ahead and update all of these elements if I want. I'm just going to undo that because I've just noticed that my text in here was set to center justified. I'm going to click that to left so that when I come in here and add new text, it's writing out from the right, from the left to the right. Just put a few dummy kind of labels in here. And so on. Now if I want to swap these out, so I've got a whole lot of different icons here. That's pretty easy. All I need to do is drag one component from the list out into the workspace. Now I just have to make sure that I'm swapping the right component. So I've got a component at the top level here, and then inside that I've got another instance of a different component, and that's the one that I want to swap. So in this instance, I'm going to have to drill down into the component by double clicking there. So if I just grabbed this other component, for example, oops, and I only had this component selected, see how it highlights, and it wants to swap my mail icon with that whole component, which is kind of not what I want to do in this instance. I want to drill down a bit deeper and just make sure that I'm highlighting the icon component, and then I can drag in my new one and it'll just highlight that little section, and I can swap those over. Not too far, just to that point. Get the car one in there, and I don't know, just improvising here. Something like that. So pretty quickly we've knocked together an overlay, a modal kind of overlay menu using a combination of components, nested components, and the repeat grid.